3 bone-chilling signs that prove God is still speaking to you. Don't ignore this warning. The night was thicker than fog, wrapping the small town in an eerie silence. But inside the old church, the air crackled with an energy that felt alive, as if the very walls held their breath. It was said that every now and then, a whisper could be heard in the pews, a message from something beyond. People claimed it gave them shivers, a direct line to the divine. Tonight was one of those nights, where the ordinary collided with the extraordinary in ways that left hearts racing and minds racing. That a sudden clamor burst forth from the back. A woman, graying and breathless, dashed through the door. Her eyes, wide and wild, glowed with urgency. She gasped, her voice trembled as she spoke. "I saw him. I saw the figure in the stained glass. He was moving, watching us." Gasps rippled through the congregation, like a wave of lightning striking everyone cold. What could that mean? Was it a sign? The room buzzed with disbelief and reverence, each person clutching their seats, waiting for the next clue. Whispers of a young boy who had been found wandering the woods spread through the crowd like wildfire. He had returned with markings all over his arms, symbols nobody could decipher. "They look ancient," someone murmured, "like runes, calling for something." The room's temperature seemed to drop as shadows stretched across the walls. Lumps formed in throats, eyes darted around nervously. Was this just a child's imagination? Or something far more ominous? As the atmosphere thickened, an old book, tattered and forgotten, was suddenly thrust into the preacher's hands. It discussed messages from beyond. He hesitated, gazing into the intrigued faces surrounding him. Could these be signs of divine intervention? He pondered aloud, but his voice was swallowed by an unsettling silence. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Just then, a low, gut-wrenching moan echoed in the back, followed by an inexplicable sound, like a chorus of whispers merging into one terrifying voice. A figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in black, its face hidden beneath a hood. Hearts raced, breaths held tight. Could this be the answer they were seeking, or the harbinger of doom? The space crackled with tension, the unsettling feeling of something monumental hanging in the balance. Who was this figure, and what did it mean? Would the town ever be the same after this encounter? The cloaked figure stepped forward, and an icy chill swept through the church. Gasps echoed off the stone walls as the congregation leaned in, eyes widening with a mix of fear and fascination. The flickering candlelight illuminated the outline of a frail hand emerging from the robe, revealing a glimmering object, a pendant shaped like an ancient cross. It swung back and forth, casting shadows that danced across the wooden pews. "Do not be afraid," a voice crackled from beneath the hood, deep and resonant. It was as if the sound came from the very depths of the earth itself. "I am here to relay the messages that have reached your world." A collective shudder coursed through the crowd. The preacher, eyes narrowed, took a step forward, his heart pounding. "Messages? From whom? What do you want?" The figure raised its other hand, and silence fell like a heavy blanket. "From those you have long forgotten. The whispers you hear are not mere figments of your imagination. They are warnings, cries for help from the shadows." Panic rippled through the church as the weight of the words sank in. It was one thing to believe in divine communication, it was another to think this figure knew something they didn't, something they had ignored. "The boy, the markings," a voice trembled from the back. It was a man with a flush in his cheeks, trembling in his seat. "What about him?" "His journey is a beacon," the figure replied, eyes shifting toward the shadows. "He carries the marks of the forsaken. He has seen things that should not be spoken of in the light." What could that mean? A woman cried, her voice shaking. The atmosphere grew denser, filled with the electric tension of dread. It means the veil is thinning. Gods do not forget, came the reply, each word laden with gravity. And when they call, consequences follow. The old preacher glanced back at the congregation, watching faces turn pale as the fear settled deeper. Who would stand against such ominous forewarnings? Yet, within him stirred a flicker of rebellious resolve. We must confront this, he urged, his voice strong yet shaky. We cannot turn away from the truth. The figure, undeterred, shook its head slowly, shrouded in mystery. Truth often arrives in the form of devastation. Those who seek it must be prepared to face the darkness in themselves. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut, and the lights flickered wildly. Gasps erupted, the air buzzed with palpable fear. The transformative figure turned to face the congregation fully. Though shrouded in darkness, its presence felt more substantial, more real. Faint images began to weave between the shadows, faces twisted in agony, eyes pleading, an anguished chorus rising. What is happening? Someone screamed, clutching their neighbor's arm as if seeking solace in shared terror. Are you ready? The figure boomed, face still hidden but unmistakably powerful. To face the truths that await you. A mighty flash of lightning illuminated the church, casting ghostly reflections. And then, just as abruptly as it had begun, everything fell silent. The figure stood still, waiting. A thrill of adrenaline raced through the crowd. Were they about to plunge into an abyss, or would they find a way to emerge unscathed? As the shadows coiled tighter around them, the preacher turned in frantic desperation. Will we stand together? But at that moment, the faintest scream echoed from outside, slicing through the silence, filling them all with a chilling dread. Who had entered the crossroads of this nightmarish fate? What was unleashed, and why? The truth was close, too close for comfort. Had the town unknowingly invited doom? Or was there yet a chance to convert this dark omen into something brighter, something redemptive? With hearts heavy but spirits trembling, the townsfolk waited as the next twist of fate loomed just beyond their grasp. The scream rang out again, a sharp, piercing sound that shattered the silence. A wave of panic swept through the congregation, faces twisted in horror as they glanced toward the doors. Some dropped to their knees, whispering frantic prayers. Others stood frozen, eyes wide with fear, hearts racing. What was that? A young woman shouted, her voice heavy with dread. Someone needs to go check. Before anyone could respond, the figure spoke again, voice like thunder. It is not what lies outside that you should fear. It is what exists within the hearts of those present. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the church. Much of the congregation shifted uneasily, the weight of the figure's words settling over them. The preacher clenched his fists, staring into the shadows, desperation etched across his face. We cannot surrender to fear, he urged, his words wavering. We must know the truth. We owe it to ourselves and to this community. The air grew thick, like a storm cloud on the verge of bursting. Then, in a move so swift that it felt like magic, the figure raised the pendant once more. Light intensified, illuminating the intricate designs etched upon it. For a fleeting moment, the air crackled with energy, and everyone felt an electric jolt run through them. Today is not an ordinary day. You are at the precipice, the figure declared, its voice echoing off the ancient stone. The markings upon the boy, they are keys that unlock the gates to realms unseen. The weight of that statement pressed down like a physical force. The boy, Thomas, who had been quietly clutching his mother's hand at the back of the church, felt the walls around him close in. Anxiety clamored in his throat, thick as the darkness swirling outside. I just want to go home, he whimpered, glancing up at his mother, her face pale and trembling. The figure turned its gaze toward Thomas, causing his heart to stop. The child knows fear, yes. But who among you will embrace courage instead? The time has come to choose your path. A low moan echoed from the corners of the church, sounding like an unwelcomed guest. The lights flickered again, sending everyone into shadows and uncertainty. Whispers from the dark corners began to rise, caught between prayer and despair. "Listen carefully," the figure continued. "There is an entity that stirs beneath the surface, seeking entry. It thrives on your doubt, your discontent, your fear. Identify it. Face it. Only then can strength emerge." Amidst the chaos, a voice rang out from the back, a trembling man who had been watching the unfolding events with wary eyes. "But how? What do we do?" The cloaked figure dropped its voice to a low whisper that struck every ear like fire. "You must confront your sins and reveal the truths that bind you. Only together can you pierce the veil." The cry for answers resonated, imploding within the hearts of the congregation. Tension hung thick in the air, making it hard to breathe. The flickering candlelight caught glimpses of sweat-drenched faces, each marked with an unspoken camaraderie birthed from fear. Just then, with a resounding crash, one of the church windows shattered, gusting wind into the room. The church rattled, and an eerie howl cascaded through the space like a siren's wail. They stood with bated breath, torn between the impulse to run and the desire to uncover the darkest truths that clawed at the fringes of their existence. "Are you brave enough to face what awaits on the other side of the veil?" The figure's eyes blazed with urgency. As the shadows danced mercilessly in the flickering light, everyone felt a pull, a calling to the depths of their souls. The palpable dread grew with every second, holding them captive, driving the congregation toward a fateful decision. And then, through the cracking silence, a voice broke through, primal and guttural. "Let it begin." With that chilling invitation lingering in the air, the congregation shivered collectively. What path would they choose, and would their choices lead to redemption or ruin? The wind howled again, a mournful echo that slithered through the shattered window. The noise wrapped around them like a tight, suffocating blanket, forcing gasps and muted cries to rise amid the shifting shadows. It felt as if the church itself trembled beneath the weight of the terrible decision they were all about to face. As though woven into the fabric of the room, the figure's presence loomed larger. Unforgettable, it stirred something deep within each individual. Frightened faces began to morph into expressions of fierce determination. The preacher, eyes wild and fierce, held his ground as he shouted above the roar, "We can't let it win. We need to stand together, confront our truths." A flicker of hope sparked as a woman from the front row rose slowly, her figure small but fierce. I lost my way," she stammered, voice quaking yet solid. "I've been living a lie, for years. I thought I could hide, but I'm ready to face it." Her honesty trembled through the air, igniting a shift in the congregation. Another man, his brow furrowed and fists clutched tight, followed her lead. "I've betrayed those I love. That monster within me feeds on guilt and shame, and I refuse to let it win." One by one, eyes glistened with unshed tears, unearthing buried truths and terrors. Each confession contributed to a web of shared human experience, entangled with fear but bound in solidarity. They were vulnerable, stripped bare before each other, the darkness outside a mirror reflecting their own inner demons. The figure stepped forward, the bright light from the pendant casting an even more intense glow. "Your voices carry power. Speak your fears aloud, be the architects of your own salvation." With every spoken truth, the energy in the room shifted. An electric buzz charged the air, as if each confession acted like a battery recharging the spirits of everyone present. Thomas, still clinging to his mother's hand, watched in wonder. The moment stretched as more souls stood tall in their fragility, reclaiming control over their fears. He felt a flicker of something he hadn't recognized before: courage, but then, from the deepest shadows of the room, came a voice so unsettling it sent ripples of ice down everyone's spine. "What if the truth is worse than the fear?" The words dripped with insidious taunts that slithered into ears like poison, halting the confession's mid-flow. The lights dimmed, the shadows thickened, something dark lurked in the corners of the church. "Do not listen," the figure shouted, and yet a palpable dread radiated from all directions. Faces twisted in uncertainty as the sinister echo of doubt sparked reluctance. Just as quickly, the weight of their fears coiled tightly around them again, urging silence where their voices had shone so brightly moments ago. Release it. The figure instructed, desperation creeping into its voice. Now is the time. Every moment that passes gives the darkness strength. You are the light. With those piercing words, the mother beside Thomas released his hand, stepping forward. I fear for my son, she cried, her voice breaking. For the hate I hold towards those who hurt us. I will not let that following curse consume me. The pain of her words cut through, binding those still scattered with hope. Thomas felt the grip of fear loosen as he stepped forward on shaky legs. I'm scared, but I won't hide. He declared, surprising even himself. The room gasped, and light flared bright as more stood with him, inspired by his childlike resolve, and then it surged forward, a tide of voices rising, spilling out pent-up fears that had held them captive for so long. I fear failure. I fear rejection. I fear losing everything. Just then, the pendant in the figure's hands flared even brighter, illuminating the entire church. The swirling shadows wailed as they faced the onslaught of truth unleashed by united voices. But then suddenly, from the depths of the congregation, a dark shape coalesced, its form flickering like a flame. The figure turned sharply, eyes widened in terror. Beware! It cried, as the shadows manifested into something more significant, something ready to feast on all the fears they had just spilled forth. The walls echoed with a resentment that had snaked its way among them. Prepare yourselves. Darkness doesn't just dwell within, it seeks to consume all. As the congregation stilled, hearts pounding, they realized they were not just confronting what lay within, they were standing on the threshold of a battle for their very souls. Would they muster enough courage to keep the darkness at bay, or would their fears become their undoing? As the shadows writhed, a chilling question hung: what are you willing to sacrifice for the light? The chaos of whispered fears hung in the air like thick smoke, choking the hope they had built. The shadows stirred and stretched, seeking to wrap around the hearts of everyone present. Thomas felt it, a cold pinprick of dread creeping down his spine, latching onto his pulse, quickening as the darkness loomed. Then, the figure in the front flickered, its face illuminating with an intense brightness that contrasted sharply with the encroaching gloom. The darkness feeds on your silence. It echoed, its voice ringing out with urgency. Speak. Speak, and you shall take back your power. The congregation hesitated, each person caught between the haunting grip of fear and the desperation to reclaim their voices. The shadows twisted, screeching as if in protest against the light. Thomas stared into the chaos, remembering the confessions, the warmth that had momentarily chased away that consuming dread. Do it, Mom! He yelled, his own voice trembling. It cut through the thick silence, and for a moment, the shadows bobbed uncertainly, almost recoiling from his small but defiant cry. The mother, eyes wide, looked at her son with a mix of pride and fear. But what if my truth is too heavy? What if it destroys me? The words spilled out huskily. Then we'll carry it together, Thomas countered, heart racing, urging the others. We can face it. Just like you did before, remember? He saw the glimmer of recognition flash across her eyes. Around them, others began to stir. Another voice rose, an older man, trembling but resolute. I lost my daughter to my regrets. He choked on the words, but continued, I watched her slip away, too ashamed to tell her what I should have said. I can't hide any more. With that declaration, flashes of deeper truths ignited sparks across the church. I fear I am not enough. Someone yelled from the back, and another added, I fear I will never find forgiveness. Each confession was like kindling, feeding the growing flame of courage and light against the suffocating darkness. Shadows writhed and howled as the truth struck them like arrows. The figure raised the pendant higher, and a deafening crack rang out, shaking the very foundation of the church. Join us. It bellowed. Let the truth move through you. Cast away your chains. The walls trembled, a deep rumble echoing in response. Every spoken fear became a jagged piece of light, splintering the darkness, forcing it to writhe and jerk as if caught in a wild storm. Then, the dark shape surged forward with renewed ferocity, coiling like a serpent, ready to strike. Thomas felt his heartbeat quicken, the fear returning in waves, but he stood firm. "We're not afraid of you. We face you together," he shouted, emboldened by the voices around him. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook violently, sending dust and debris flying. The shadows hissed, the harsh whispers escalating into a piercing shriek that clawed at their minds. "You think you're safe? The truth will only reveal your deepest horrors." The figure remained steadfast, an unwavering beacon against the madness. "Each of you carries the light. Let it shine. It will guide you through this darkness." With those words, the air shimmered, and a collective gasp rose from the congregation. They reached for their buried fears, pulling them into the light, allowing the warmth of shared strength to envelop them. But just as the shadows began to retreat, something sinister flickered in the depths, a promise of dread lying in wait. "This isn't over," hissed the dark shape, slinking back within the chaos, biding its time. The intensity in the room heightened as the reality of their predicament dawned on them. This battle was just beginning. As silence enveloped them once more, shadows danced in the corners, whispering dark secrets. Uncertainty loomed, heavy and thick, a question gnawed at the recesses of their minds: what would it take to truly vanquish the darkness now circling like vultures? The air was thick with anticipation, each breath drawn tightly in the collective silence. An eerie stillness hung over the congregation, broken only by the faint crackle of the pendant which still glowed with a fierce light. Shadows feigned retreat as they latched onto weary hearts, hopeful yet terrified. Would this newfound strength be enough to withstand the darkness lurking just beyond the edges of their light? Thomas felt the tension build, a tumult of fear and courage rushing through him. The figure at the front flickered uncertainly, radiating an otherworldly glow. "Your truth can shatter the darkness," it implored, but doubts brewed among them like a storm ready to break. Someone stepped forward from the throng, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks. "What if the truth is worse than the shadows?" Her voice wavered, uncertainty clinging to every word. Thomas's chest tightened. Would they let fear steal their chance? "We're stronger together. Remember, it's the silence that empowers the darkness." Others murmured in agreement, affirmation building like a wave. But just as they began to find their harmony, the shadows twisted violently, shrieking in response to the rising unity. An icy breath flowed through the crowd, sending shivers down spines. "Your truths are meaningless," the darkness hissed. A sinister laugh echoed, reverberating through the hollow space. The figure, undaunted, steadied itself. "Do you feel it? The pulse of your truths straining to be released. Do not let it be stifled." Thomas's heart raced. He could see in the faces around him a flicker of defiance. The older man from earlier stepped forward again, his voice breaking through the clamor. "My truth, it's about loss, regret," he confessed, looking around at the faces watching him. "But it's also about love. I loved her, but I spoke too late. If I could go back, I would scream it until my lungs burst." Each word hung in the air, heavy and full of weight, crackling with an energy that felt almost alive. A ripple of tension passed through the congregation as they nodded, recalling their own haunted truths. "I'm terrified," someone whispered, their bravery resurfacing. "But hiding has only made the shadows stronger." The room felt charged as more stepped forward. "I fear the judgment of others," echoed a young woman. "But what good has that done for me?" The air grew thick with confessions, a chorus of fears being laid bare. With each declaration, the shadows hissed, their grotesque forms shrinking back reluctantly. The light fought back fiercely, desperate to reclaim its space. Yet, just as brilliance threatened to banish the darkness entirely, a deafening roar erupted, shaking the very foundations of the church. "You think this is enough?" the dark figure screeched, almost gleefully. "Face the truth of your deepest fears." Thomas flinched but stood resolute, bolstered by the raw power of unity surrounding him. The figure emitted a brilliant flash, sending a wave of clarity through the crowd. Remember why you are here. Your voices matter. But before anyone could respond, a blinding shadow surged forth, sweeping through the congregation with a viscous intent, icy tendrils of darkness that snaked around ankles and knees, threatening to pull them down into despair. Panic erupted, and cries of fright split the air. "Don't give in," Thomas urged, feeling the weight of every gaze resting upon him. "This can't consume us. We must stand firm." As the whirlwind of chaos swirled, the figure's light flickered with uncertainty, a faltering promise in the face of terror. "Trust in your strength. You can overcome this." But deep within the wailing shadows, Thomas felt an unsettling pulse, a whisper of secrets that could unravel them all. What was it hiding? As the darkness roared louder, mirroring the surge of panic, doubt clawed at the fringes of their resolve. What would they unleash if they dared to confront that hidden horror? Would the very act of speaking their truths fully expose something far more sinister lurking beneath? The tension snapped, leaving only the biting silence as fear gripped them tighter. What would they find if they chose to face the ultimate truth? The shadows roared, their ferocity intensifying as if mocking the light's presence. Thomas's heart hammered in his chest, urgency pooling in his gut. He could feel every individual breath around him, each gasp amplifying the suffocating tension, the desperation extending into a collective fight against despair. "Stay together," he shouted, scanning the faces. Hope and fear intertwined like an inseparable braid. "Your truth will drive the darkness away." But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in the air like a thick fog, suffocating his words. The ancient walls of the church seemed to tremble, resonating with a dread that threatened to crack their fragile bond. The air turned cold, a chilling embrace that clung to their skin. Shadows writhed, extending grotesque limbs towards the crowd, eager to consume their hopes. Then, piercing through the chaos, a child's voice broke the mounting despair. "Mommy, I'm scared." A little girl, clutching a ragged teddy bear, stood at the edge of the congregation. Her wide, innocent eyes darted from one face to another, each looking for answers she wasn't sure existed. The sight sparked something deep within Thomas, igniting a flicker of courage where there had been fear. "No," he called out. "We will not let our fears win. Not for her." He gestured towards the girl, whose small form became a symbol of everything they fought for. It was a powerful image, the weight of their communal resolve shifting. With newfound determination, members of the crowd rallied. One by one, they began to speak, their voices rising in defiance against the consuming blackness. "I feared failure," an older woman cried out. "But now I see I can stand taller than my past." A fervent cheer erupted, ricocheting off the walls, empowering others to unleash their hidden fears. The shadows shrieked, snapping angrily as if the light was not merely blinding but searing. Thomas pressed on, his resolve steeled. "Your voices, your truths, they are weapons. Don't let the darkness drown them out." As he spoke, he could feel the heat of truth unraveling the chains binding them, unraveling years of silence and regret, yet just as the tide shifted, something deeper awoke within the darkness. "No. You cannot escape your realities." A voice boomed, a deep, resonant echo that shook the very ground beneath them. It wasn't just a voice, it felt like a presence, a malicious being that thrived on terror and silence. Suddenly, a violent gale swept through the church, extinguishing flickering candle flames and plunging them into a swirling abyss of shadows. Panic gripped the gathering once more, and screams pierced the air. Thomas, determined not to succumb, pushed against the thrumming power of fear. "Don't give up," he shouted, his voice above the chaos. "Face it together. Face what lies within." But doubt clawed at him too. Their most painful truths threatened to spill into the open, raw and messy. What would they find if heartache was laid bare? Would the reality be more staggering than any nightmare? Then, out of the chaos, the figure at the forefront transformed, its light brightening, defying the shadows even as they fought back with shrieks of fury. "The truth is not your enemy," it implored, sounding both vibrant and pained. "It is your salvation." Thomas felt a pulse race through the air, a call to action. As if stitched into the fabric of their gathering, hope surged and propelled him forward. "Let us share our burdens," he yelled, his vision narrowing on the flickering figure that stood defiantly. "Let your truth be your light. No more silence." With one last desperate gasp, the encroaching shadows shriveled, caught in a tug of war between fear and faith. Yet just beyond that turmoil, beneath the cascade of anguish threatened by the shifting winds of despair, something deeper, more unsettling lurked beneath the surface of their shared fears. What lay beneath their truths? A darkness older than time itself, waiting to consume them whole, and as the shadows howled, Thomas understood this was just the beginning. What hidden nightmare awaited if they were to uncover the deepest secrets tethered to their fears? The shadows convulsed, now sensing their strength faltering. Thomas could see fear painted vividly on the faces around him. It gripped them like an icy hand. The screams of the fallen candles echoed in the nooks of the church, bouncing off the ancient stone that had witnessed generations of despair. Yet within that cacophony, he felt an undeniable shift. "Someone speak," he urged, desperation turning his voice into a plea. Then, like a moth drawn to flame, a brave soul stepped forward. It was the timid woman who had once cowered at the back of the church, hiding behind the pillars. I lost my son," she trembled, words coming out in fractured gasps. "I'm so afraid I'll never be whole again." The moment her truth left her lips, a collective intake of breath echoed through the crowd. The shadows recoiled, as if repelled by her vulnerability. For each confession laid bare, Thomas could feel the air inch closer to clarity. Others began to follow, exposing long-buried pain. Each story, each trembling voice, felt like a torch illuminating the darkest corners of their souls. "Our secrets bind us," a man shouted, his eyes ablaze with fervor. "But sharing them mends the chains." With those words, an electric shiver zipped through the congregation, a ripple of hope flickering in the depths of despair. Yet, just as Thomas felt the surge of shared strength, a guttural growl erupted from the heart of the shadows, drowning out their voices. "You think you can break free?" it snarled, a dark fury emerging as it lashed toward the most vulnerable among them. The woman gasped, her face pale as the darkness coiled hungrily around her. "Step back!" Thomas screamed, his heart pounding against his ribcage. He lunged forward, instinctively reaching out, feeling the warmth of life pulse against the encroaching cold. "You are not alone," he shouted, his voice cutting through the shrieks of dismay. The darkness began to twitch and writhe, uncertainty creeping over it. It had thrived on their isolation. Now, in their unity, it struggled to hold its ground. "You think your voices can defeat me?" it echoed, disdain thick in the air. "Your truths are but whispers against the roar of your shame." Yet, in that moment, Thomas witnessed something remarkable. The once timid woman raised her chin, her face illuminated by an unyielding resolve. "Shame is chained to the past," she cried. "But I will forge my future in truth." With that proclamation, the shadows shivered, recoiling from the fierce light of her determination. Thomas felt it too, an undeniable fire ignited within him and spread throughout the crowd. He could see fellow souls gathering their strength, their fears morphing into rage against their oppressor. Let them pour out all they've kept hidden. Speak of your losses. Speak of love betrayed. Share your regrets. Thomas implored, urging them to channel their darkest thoughts, letting their truth become a shield against the impending doom. But it wasn't just a battle of words, it was a skirmish for their very souls. The shadows hissed, more furious than before, "You will regret this. I will strip away your light, unmask your terror." As the figures around him shouted their truths, unearthing what had been festering like an open wound, Thomas felt a flicker of dread. What new horrors might lie beneath? Would the darkness seize those confessions and twist them into weapons? Even as the chaos roiled, a single question clawed at his mind. What if unearthing their fears awakened something they never expected? Why did he feel this deep sense of dread intertwining with hope? They were on the brink of something monumental, yet he couldn't shake an unsettling realization. What if the darkness wasn't just a thing to conquer? What if it was a reflection of their deepest, most hidden truths, waiting to awaken from slumber? As Thomas prepared to delve deeper, he knew one thing for certain: this fight was far from over, and its outcome would ripple through their lives in ways they could never foresee. Would they truly be ready to face what waited in the shadows? The air crackled with energy as the congregation continued to speak, their voices intertwining in a fierce chorus. Each truth catapulted into the open, exposing festering wounds that the darkness once fed on. It writhed and hissed, tighter and tighter, attempting to claw its way through the strength of their shared revelations. Thomas's heart raced as he watched the shadows struggle, but deep down, he felt a gnawing fear. What if there was more to this than just the despair of the past? What if something even darker lurked beneath, driven by those very secrets they now unleashed? A man in the front row stammered, his voice trembling. I never told anyone about the accident. It was my fault. The shame lacerated the air like a knife. As he spoke, a shadow shot forth, whispering promises of doubt and denial, wrapping around him like a vice. Thomas could feel the crowd's energy fluctuate, torn between sharing truths and the overwhelming dread of what lay hidden within their souls. No! Thomas shouted, his voice sharp as glass. Do not let it silence you. Your truth holds power. He latched onto the man's gaze, beckoning him to continue. You are stronger than your fears. With a strangled breath, the man pressed on. I didn't mean to. I was distracted. I lost control. The words tumbled out, raw and painful, and as he revealed the guilt that haunted him, the shadow recoiled, its malevolence dimming slightly. The crowd cheered him along, blending sorrow with strength as others drew from his courage. A young woman who stood nearby found the strength to step forward. I lost my brother. The darkness swallowed him whole. Her body quaked, tears cascading down her cheeks. I should have saved him. The weight of her guilt resonated, and just as before, the shadows writhed as though in agony. Suddenly, a wave of realization crashed over Thomas. These weren't just stories of pain. They were battles waged against despair, confessions that transformed into weapons. You are not condemned by your past. He implored. Let your truth be your weapon. Let it fight back. And as the woman called her brother's name, a blinding light erupted from her heart, radiating outward. The shadows screamed, a high-pitched wail that tore through the air. Triumph surged through the crowd, a palpable force that coursed through each of them. Together, they were an army of light, their truths standing united like a fortress against the encroaching dark. Thomas felt exhorted, yet still unsettled. Will this truly be enough? His mind screamed amidst the chaos. Beneath the layers of anguish lay unanswered questions, buried truths, waiting to surge forth. Then came a chilling silence, a heavy blanket that smothered the cheers. The shadows froze, their malice momentarily stifled. And in that breathless moment, a single low whisper slithered through the air, as sharp as a knife. You think this is your victory? I can awaken what you never wanted to face. A deep chill snaked through Thomas's spine. The shadows seemed to pulse, alive with hunger. The crowd fell back, fear slithering returning, activating their deepest anxieties. What did it mean to awaken what lay hidden? Thomas's heart raced again. The prospect of what that might entail loomed large before them. Could their truths banish the darkness, or had they merely stirred it? What fears remained locked away, waiting for the very moment they dared to speak? In the cold silence, a murmur of dread swept through the group, the foreboding realization that the real struggle was yet to come. What shadows threatened to rise from the depths of their confessions? Would they stand together when faced with the darkest corners of their souls, or would fear tear them apart? The shadows twisted tighter, an ominous dance teasing at their fears, threatening to wrap around every heart in the church. A shiver slithered down Thomas's spine. He had never felt this heavy, this electric. It was the essence of dread breathing around them, thick as fog, but it was no longer an isolated terror. Speak, he urged, breaking through the apprehensive stillness. We're stronger now, and our truth can defeat this. Each heartbeat thundered, a reminder of their collective resolve. Another voice from the front broke through. It was the timid woman from before. I was ashamed of who I am. I thought nobody would love me if they knew my truth. Her admission pierced the air like a spark igniting the dry kindling of silence. Shadows sputtered, flickering at the radiance of her vulnerability. That shame is not the end, Thomas said, gripping her gaze firmly. It's a beginning. The shadows twisted, hissing softly as if wrestling with the truth's power. One by one, more voices soared, spilling out confessions layered with pain and heartache. I blamed myself for my brother's death. A man shouted, his face twisted with sorrow. I could have saved him. Each revelation built momentum, eroding the dark energy that clutched at them. With each truth illuminated, the shadows hissed, their forms wavering, unsure. You cannot defeat me. Echoed their taunting voices, but their bravado began to falter. The preacher stepped forward, grounding himself in faith. We are in this together. Our pain binds us, but our truths free us. Share. Let it all out. The fervor in his voice ignited a wildfire of honesty among the crowd. Then came a voice from the back, Thomas's own mother. I feared for you, Thomas. I held on too tightly to protect you, and all it did was push you away. The darkness trembled, recoiling from the warmth of shared understanding. I'm scared. Thomas yelled, his voice piercing through the blackness. But I won't cower to you anymore. As he spoke, something shifted within him, a force that overcame the engulfing shadows. Suddenly, Thomas felt a lightning bolt of inspiration. Let me tell you my truth too. He announced. I fear I'll never be strong enough. He paused, gathering courage. I'm terrified I'll lose myself, just like everyone else I love. The shadows surged toward him, hungry, but he pressed through. But I won't surrender. I choose hope over despair. Love over fear. With that declaration, the room erupted. Voices collided, words flooding into the air. I fear I will never be free. I resent the ones I love for leaving. I thought I had to suffer alone. No more. The congregation cried in unison, drowning out the darkness ringing in their ears. The shadows screeched, writhing as if caught in the throes of rejection. Shards of light exploded from each confession, stronger than an electric storm. It flowed like a river through the church, a deliberate push against the encroaching void. Thomas felt relief wash over him, a cleansing wave of warmth. Each voice resonating was a stake driven into the heart of darkness. Keep going. He shouted amidst the rising tide. Your truth is a weapon. Use it. Then, it happened. One final voice broke the dam. The young boy, Thomas, stood strong against all odds. His small frame radiated courage. I was lost. But now I know I belong. His voice soared like a trumpet, illuminating the room. In an explosion of brilliance, the darkness began to retreat, unraveling like smoke in the wind. The shadows shrieked, no longer bold but frightened as every unshackled truth erupted like fireworks. With their fears laid bare, the congregation pulsed with renewed strength. They had stripped away their chains, revealing a radiant light. The figure, who had been silent, gleamed with pride. You have found your way, heartbeats together, a symphony of humanity. The air shimmered, alive with powerful energy as the darkness shrank further. This is the moment of your rebuilding. In unity, you have reclaimed your strength. They felt a shift, a heavy weight lifting from their shoulders rather than just vanquishing darkness. You will face your trials, but know this, the light within you shines brighter than any shadow, the figure declared before slowly fading back into the ether. Silence enveloped them, but it was a hopeful silence, a redemptive retreat from chaos, filled with possibility. Thomas felt the air soften around him. They had battled not only the darkness but the restraints of their pasts. Now, standing in the aftermath, they held hands, hearts united in newfound freedom, forged in vulnerability. As the congregation spilled out of the church, the dawn began to break, warm hues spilling across the town. A sense of belonging filled the air, promising that this battle had shifted something deeper. "Remember this night," the preacher said, his eyes gleaming. "Hold on to it. It will guide you through the trials to come." With final glances exchanged, they understood, in every heartbeat, the truths that illuminated their souls. This moment marked rebirth, a vibrant promise of hope amidst life's uncertainties. No longer bound by shadows, they poured into the light, knowing they were forever together, emboldened, united. As they began their new chapters, a sense of urgency surged, reminding everyone, even now, of their interconnected spirit. Thomas turned around, heart full. "Never be afraid to speak your truth again." And with that, future possibilities shimmered with vibrancy. Now, don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And if you found hope in this conclusion, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means everything. Let us connect and keep this community alive.